So, we are very close to Purim. It's a different type of avodah, different type of serving Hashem. We usually serve Hashem in a certain way, but now when we enter Purim, there's a different way of serving Hashem. Eating and drinking and celebrating. It's a different avodah that requires some thinking. This is not a shir on Purim. If you want to hear my take on Purim, then wait till Purim. But today we're going to talk about bitachon. And again, the shir is Ilui Nishmas, the Rosh Yeshiva Zatzal, or Nasa Nota ben Rachel, and also L'Refuat, the Bacher Eitan Eliyahu, ben Rivka Liza, Toch Sha'ar Cholei Yisrael. So, gentlemen, bitachon. If you have bitachon, you live a life without regret. You don't feel victimized, you don't feel cheated, you don't feel some conspiracy theory that stole your opportunity to be happy. You don't blame others. You understand that this is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants. That doesn't mean we don't live a life with critical analysis of our behavior. That is, we always have to look at what did we do, what could we do better, how can we improve and fix what we did, and then we move on. But it's not about blaming. It's not about feeling a sense of betrayal or loss. A person with bitachon doesn't spend much energy worrying about his financial well-being. You understand it's in the hand of Hashem. We all understand that we are not immortal. There's going to be a day that we're not going to be here. Correct?
True.
And we are okay with that. We trust that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to take us when it is best for us. And we don't worry about the rest of it. A person is not happy for what will happen in the future, nor are you sad for what happened in the past. It's not something that you're looking forward to. Just live with bitachon. This coffee is brought to you by Avin the Moose. Professional services of guarding coffee. Good stuff. We spend a lot of time worrying about all sorts of things. We worry about what people will say about us. We'll worry what will happen, what will be, what are we going to do. It doesn't help. Yes.
To what extent it doesn't help to worry about the future? Does it help to plan for the future?
Plan for sure. Plan is not worry. That is, let's say a person wants to get married. So he'll drop a plan. Okay, so what do I need? So I need to get a resume. So put in a resume. I need to have a plan of how I'm going to pay for things. So I got to get a job, I got to get this, I got to get that. I need to speak to shadchanim, get some feedback. So make some appointments with the shadchaniyot or shadchans, trying to get, here's who I am. What does the market look like? He gets good feedback. Then they say, okay, put your resume in. Let's see, get some nibbles. So you put a plan together. But to lay in bed thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do? Nobody's going to like me. No one's going to do. Well, I don't know that that's going to be helpful. So it's the same thing with every aspect. If there's something that you can do concrete, right? Then set up a plan, put together an action plan, and follow through. That's called ishtadlus. That's not called worrying. Yeah.
What can you do to dodge the worrying thoughts when they eventually arise?
First of all, the fact that you think they eventually arise, that's what you need to work on. That's not an eventuality. The word eventual means necessary, unavoidable. It's not unavoidable.
How do you make it unavoidable?
Well, first,
how do you avoid worry?
Well, first of all, recognize that you don't have to worry. Don't make it in terms of your framework, of your way that you understand human existence, as there must be X amount of worrying per year. Doesn't have to be. Now, there are people who live, sort of day to day, happy-go-lucky, and don't worry about anything, and people think that they're silly. They're foolish. But I'm not so sure. But here we're talking about that we trust the Kadosh Baruch Hu. So that when you start worrying and say, okay, I believe in Hashem, and I know that Hashem will take care of me. And whatever happens to me, it is part of His plan. And as long as I do what I'm supposed to do, then Hashem will bring forth the best that is for me. And that's it. And there's nothing to worry about. How's worry going to help you? Dan, how are you?
Good.
You feeling okay?
Feeling good, yeah.
You look a little tired. Looks like you got into a fight with your pillow.
Oh, yeah. This is not a while ago.
Yes.
I hate when this happens.
That's a good question.
I know. It's more of a statement at that point, but yes. It's fine, just come back.
I won't.
Must not be important.
So, do you want to say something, or are you just covering your cough? What people invest in is growing in their fear of God. Yirat Shamayim. Yirat Shamayim is one of the greatest tools. What the?
He became a cop.
What?
He became a cop with 2 divorces.
Oh my God. Well, why'd you shave your eyebrows? People work on having Yirat Shamayim. Yirat Shamayim means fear of God. And in that sense, Yirat Shamayim sometimes, inevitably, puts us in a situation where we start worrying. And the best example that we have is of Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov Avinu in Parshas Vayetze, he is promised by Hashem that Hashem tells him, I'm going to take care of you. Everything will be fine. Don't worry. And the Torah says, Akuna Matata. Akuna Matata. And yet when he wakes up, he's terrified and he asks, praise to Hashem, that he will keep the promise. And the Rashi there brings us the Gemara. The Gemara says, what was he worried about? He was worried that he would sin, and his sins, his behavior, would nullify the promise that Hashem made to him. So, we are, in that sense, we're not the greatest tzaddikim in the world. Some of us slipped up, right? Not everybody wakes up for shachris. Not everybody does everything that they're supposed to do. Sometimes you add a few things that you're not supposed to do, right? You know, the amnesty is over Thursday afternoon.
It doesn't concern me.
I didn't say it concerns you. You look very relaxed. Until we have to fill the cup. Oh, then all the excuses are going to come. Oh, Rabbi, he was next to me. I just inhaled. I didn't inhale.
Rabbi, I had a poppy seed muffin.
I swear that was it.
It's not methamphetamine.
I'm in the train of thought. He gives me like, oh, okay, that's good. Otherwise, you're out. So, that's a matter of concern. And says the Chovos Halevavos over here, that we should live, that we should do tshuva one day before we die. What's the catch? You don't know when you're going to die. Good. So do tshuva now. Yeah. Yes. So if you do that, that you live a life where you are evaluating your behavior, improving your behavior. When you do something wrong, you fix it. Which is the way that a man should live. That is, the Torah is not telling you to do something that's superhuman. You're capable of being a mensch. You're capable of not stealing from people. You're capable of not killing people, Nachshon. Right? You're capable of not coveting your neighbor's wife. That's what it says. I don't know why they think it's funny. Lenny, you're capable of living without lying.
Salacious rumors. Thousands. Somebody gets stopped in customs.
We are capable of living a life of Kedusha, of holiness. Is it an easy life? No. But I will tell you, from the studies that I've seen, from teaching on a college campus for 13 years, and being a college student for another, I don't know how many years, I can tell you that even the non-holy life is difficult. Even if you try to live la vida loca, right? Party, drinking, smoking, chasing chicas calientes, too scared of girls. That's why I guess, well, never mind. I almost... But the people who think that's an easy life. But then you see they have issues with stress. They have issues of alienation. They don't know who they are. It makes it very difficult. Even that life is difficult. If you seek a life of physical pleasure, most people can't afford it. They don't make enough money to do that. Whereas if you choose a life of Kedusha, of holiness, the first Shabbos Suda, you're in a whole different world. You start learning and then all of a sudden you realize that there's a whole new, what it means to be a human being was stolen away from you. Nobody gave you the opportunity to know. The challenge for a lot of us in this yeshiva, since we come from a background that was not raised in traditional Jewish education, is that we didn't know. We made choices, we picked up habits, we adopted certain views of what life is, what reality is, without knowing. And we sort of went along with it because that was what everybody did. So nobody blames you. That's why Chazal have a concept of a tinok shenishba. It's like a baby taken captive by non-Jews and raised by them, and he knows nothing about his own tradition. And you can't blame your parents because they were also raised in that culture. It's been going on. There's a break in our tradition for most of us for a good 200 to 300 years. I was giving a talk once in a certain Israeli university. And I said to them, it was like a room of about 70 people. Men and women, most of them are graduate students. So you're talking about people in their late 20s, early 30s. I said to them, if you think of what does a Jew look like? What do you think a Jew looked like 300 years ago? 400 years ago? Who would he look like? Me or you?
Neither.
What?
Neither.
Neither. Because?
Depends the region. Depends where.
Don't be racist now. Don't be racist. All right? Just because we have one Yemenite student, you don't have to put him on the spot every time. Sorry, Mike. Is he okay? Is he crying again? What do you mean, neither?
Dressed like this that long ago. Like I can't imagine, people with their toes out and wearing sweatpants.
I can't imagine it right now, and I'm seeing it in front of me. And I warned you, that toe is, if you saw that toe, that would freak you out. Somebody needs to look at that. And I think you're only supposed to have 5 on every foot. That 6th one, I don't know. That one, it's got to go. So obviously you missed the point. But, okay. It's not the first time.
What was the point?
Well, you missed it. Everybody else got it except the, Mr. over there saying, so not everybody was white. Don't be racist. Jews come of any color. Any color. We have Jews from all over the world. And we have a Mishnah in Shabbos that says that the Jews of Arabia, the Jews of this, different types of Jews, we know.
Right, so they didn't all dress the same.
It's not a question of dressing. It's a question of what they look like. Did the men have beards or they look like you? They didn't look like CHP officers. I'm going to take my sip. Is that okay? Avi? Do you want to ask your question while I'm sipping from my coffee?
Sure.
Okay, but I am paying attention.
Okay. Did they dress like the Bedouins? Oh no, sorry. You meant just how their beards were like.
It's amazing. Over there, they got it. Over here,
I assume you meant dress, not like.
no, I think that what I think is that if you 300, 400 years ago, if we went back, and let's say I took Mr. Adidas over here, and we would go into a shul, who would they think is a Jew and who would they throw out? They would pelt. I'm kidding. But my point was that there was a traditional view of what a Jew is, with beard, with payas, the head covering. Okay, so we wear suits, so then back then they didn't have suits, they wore cloaks. Whatever it is. They wore tzitzis? Yes. That was my point. That there is a break in tradition, unfortunately, that started in Europe, which we can discuss that at one point or another, that created the concept of a secular Jew. And a secular Jew just means that a Jew that is disconnected from the tradition. That's the difficult situation that a lot of us grew up with. That our parents or grandparents or even great-grandparents, depending on, that's where this is what they had. And so they only gave you what they had. They didn't have much. I was talking to somebody about Passover, and he was telling me what they do with the Seder. And it sounded ridiculous. Mamish ridiculous. And I told him, I said, listen, if I thought that Pesach is what you're saying it was, then I wouldn't do it either. Because it sounds silly. Right? You tell people, what's Purim? Oh, people will dress up in costumes. That's the story of Purim? That's what it is? Find the earliest source for costumes in Purim. Do you know what it is? What? In the Megillah? No. Nope. It's not a Gemara. No Chazal. He's going to now read and try to prove me wrong.
Was it just social then? Was there anything about
What year do you know, Be'erech? What century?
17th.
16th century. The Renaissance. This is the first time we find in halacha references to costumes. It comes from Italy.
Who is the one?
Now, I'm not saying that the costumes is an influence that we borrowed from Mardi Gras. I'm not saying that. I'm not going there. I'm not. There are historians who wanted to argue that. But you find that people think of Purim in a very shallow way. What's the purpose of Purim? To drink, get drunk. Really? Is that it? No. The whole idea of drinking, I don't know why we're talking about this, but I just want to make a point. And we'll get back to the bitachon. That there's something in our avodas Hashem that we're doing in a different way. That's not the goal. The goal of Purim is Pirsumei Nisa, that a miracle happened. What was the miracle? That there was a decree to destroy the Jewish people. And miraculously, the decree changed through inner workings within the imperial palace, and the Jews were saved. Imagine now if Achashverosh, also known as Xerxes in Greek sources, he had a different Persian name, but they couldn't really pronounce it, and it turned into Achashverosh, because back then they had 3 consonants in a row, and the Jews back then couldn't really do that, so they added an aleph. What? So then it becomes Achashverosh, and so Achashverosh was in the 500s, 480 something to 464, something like that. So you're talking about 2,500 years ago. If you lived at that time, all you would know is that there was this decree, and then there was this, it was changed, right? Kind of like this president was elected, and he changed policies, and all of a sudden, the Jews are on top. Okay? That's what it looked like. And you ask yourself, okay, so what are we actually celebrating? We are recognizing that Noam is napping. Noam, do you want to join us?
Joe Biden.
Do you want to join us for Shir, or? No, it's okay. It's okay. I didn't want to ruin your Purim. But I'm in the middle of the point. It's a very James Joycean Shir today. You know who James Joyce was?
I don't.
He's an Irish writer, wrote Ulysses, and he had this chain of consciousness.
Like his biography? About Grant?
No. Not Ulysses as Grant.
That's the Ulysses I think of.
No. You have to read a few things before.
Ulysses on the Enchanted Island.
50 Americans.
Are we done now?
President of the Union. Pretty good.
Avi?
Sorry.
You have any giggles?
Yeah, a little bit.
So, the whole Megillah is to explain to us how the Kadosh Baruch Hu runs the world behind the scenes. All these events are occurring, but none of them seem to be extraordinary. Achashverosh has a feast, this queen says something, he decides to get rid of her, get another one. And if you're looking at the entire series, okay, what's every single piece? What's the big deal? What's happening? But that's really how Kadosh Baruch Hu runs the universe. It's behind every single piece. That's why you have to listen to the Megillah, to every single word. Because the miracle is a web of events that just keep this one, and this one, and this one, and this one, and this one. And you put it all together and you recognize the nes. Pirsumei Nisa. Which means the etzem drinking is that we think that we actually figure out how this world works. But when you lose your rational faculties, you are now in a different mental capacity, you don't really know what's going on. That's really what it's like. We think we're in control. So there's a purpose for the drinking, to sort of get us off keel. And that's when you could see certain things that you couldn't see otherwise. Sometimes people who drink, they discover who they truly are. And they recognize that they need to work on themselves. right? That is, if you drink and you turn into what you used to be, that's not a good thing. That's not the point. Okay. What did you want to say?
Is there? I heard a couple days ago that Purim potentially is one of our holiest days, if not our holiest days. And then he explained to me.
Who's he?
It doesn't matter.
Then I can't react to somebody, and I don't know who.
It was a Hevra. It was just a guy.
Just a guy from what program?
Center.
Okay.
Yeah. He said that Yom Kippurim. I don't know. He tried to explain it to me. There was some. He explained it a lot better to me with the correlation of how Purim is. Is it is it a holy holiday? Is it not a holy? People drink and get wasted, but then again we had.
Well, I didn't use the word wasted ever. You noticed.
Not you, but people like just Jews in general.
Jews in general.
Yeah.
So again, there is an opinion coming from Hasidic sources.
Okay.
That, and I think it goes to Kabbalistic sources, that we say that the day of Purim is Yom Kippurim, which says Yom Kippur is like Purim.
Right.
Which means what? The avodah of Yom Kippur is through fasting, correct?
Yeah.
Whereas the avodah of Purim is through eating and drinking. Which means that the eating and the drinking has holy aspect to it. Therefore, there's a tremendous responsibility to do it in a way that's holy. It's not to get wasted.
Right.
If somebody who gets wasted and passes out in the street or throws up and whatever it is, he didn't do the avodah correctly. There's no kedusha in that. Because you have to get to a point where, yeah, you are shikkered, right, drunk, but that you haven't lost what the whole point is. It should bring you closer to avodas Hashem. That you're going to recognize something that you didn't recognize before. About yourself, about your inadequacy, or what you need to improve. So your friend is correct, but it's a much more serious day.
Yeah.
It has tremendous opportunity, but then the dangers are very great.
So as the spiritual, like as you're able to tap into more, Hashem also
There's a greater
says on the
risk.
first side, well, there's a greater risk.
Correct.
This is not-
Correct?
Yeah.
Yes?
Very cool. Thank you.
Sure. Aaron and then Avi.
I don't drink alcohol
Mazel tov.
anymore. But let's say if I did, and I did, have a different, if I had not drunk or wasted, or you said drunk but not wasted, and let's say that I did, in my altered mental consciousness, that I did, like how you're saying, have kind of like a realization or epiphany or whatever. How do you know that you're able to trust that?
Well, I don't know. Listen, it's not that you have to trust it, but it's a question of what did you recognize? Gentlemen, what's going on?
We went to the hotel. Took a little longer than expected.
It was good though.
Shear starts at 3.
Yeah, it won't happen again.
Today.
It was worth, Rabbi.
Which means this wasn't worth. I prepare in my office, do incantations and chants and wear my funny hat to get ready for this and set up.
Try to catch him up to speed.
No. You still haven't given me a good explanation of what you were doing on Ben Yehuda Street with your cousin.
That wasn't my cousin.
I could tell. You don't have to smile so big. Yeah, you were showing V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. Love your fellow Jews. You don't have to frame it for me. Avi, yes. What did you want to say?
Should a person try maybe to daven mincha earlier and then to drink after?
So, for you on Sunday, absolutely. That's what I do every year. Is you make sure that you daven mincha, and you daven mincha early, so the earliest that you can, and then you can start your suda. But if you live in a non-walled city, which is your Purim is on Friday, so if you wait, then that might be a problem because you're really supposed to start your suda before Chatzos, lechatchila. So you can't daven mincha before Chatzos anyway. So I think that this year what's going to happen is I'm going to daven mincha before Shabbos. So to have the Suda, go to sleep, wake up, get ready for Shabbos, and then daven mincha.
What time is your suda?
What time is my Suda? I don't know. I was overruled twice.
So we're not doing it at 6 a.m.?
You can do it at 6 a.m., but not me. I'm not allowed to. I was told I'm not alone.
Hey, what about Mari?
I'm sorry?
What about davening Mari while drunk? You can't do that.
Well,
The example.
By the
no.
time
By the time, if you start the Suda before Chatzos, so Chatzos is, let's say, 11:50 or something, 11:55 or something like that. Or maybe it's 12:04. I don't remember exactly. But let's say Chatzos is on 12. So you start the Suda before. So your Suda is 3 hours. You're done at 3. Right? Shabbos candle lighting is 5:30, 5:40. So you go to sleep for a couple hours. You wake up, shower, get ready. You're no longer drunk. You daven mincha, Kabbalat Shabbat, and then Ma'ariv for Shabbos. And then you go, and it's regular Shabbos. That's my way. There are other shitas. There are people who do different things, but then there are different issues with it, and I wouldn't recommend it.
Like what?
I don't want to discuss it because I don't recommend it. Any other questions, Lenny? Yes, sir.
How much kavana should I have when I'm drinking?
Well, it's not a question of how much. The question is, what are you mechaven to?
To, what's it called? Not be able to tell the difference between Haman and Mordechai.
Well, you could do. Can you do gematria now?
Gematria? Like, gematria? What do you mean?
So you can't do gematria now. You shouldn't have. You don't have any reason to drink.
What do you mean? What do you mean by, like, what does gematria have to do with this stuff?
The Mefarshim say that you should drink until you don't know the difference between Baruch Mordechai ve'Arur Haman. Right? So they say, what does that mean? So they say that you cannot do the gematria of figuring out what is the gematria of Baruch Mordechai and what is the gematria of Arur Haman. Since you don't know the gematria right now, you can't do it. So there's no point in drinking because you're already holding, but you don't know the difference. So you're done. Just have one little bit of a glass of wine and gamarnu.
No, I know how to do gematria though.
Okay. So can you do gematria?
Yeah.
In your head?
It'll take.
No, in your head.
Oh, in my head?
Yeah.
I have to go down and look at a chart again, but.
No, not chart.
Probably.
So that's the point. If you can't do the gematria,
X
you.
is 2,
Okay, here we're going to be here for a
Y is
while.
6,
I don't think Dan will allow you to go through
H
this.
is 200. That's so few.
Dan, when is class up? When are we done today?
Today, we will finish 3:55.
So what? That's in 10 minutes?
The Sophie. The Sophie. It's Sophie.
10 minutes, yeah.
Tov.
I have another question.
Shh. Avi. Did you want to ask something? What?
Distracted with this thing on top of my head. So I grabbed it.
You not shame?
I could just see him dressed up as a kangaroo. totally see him as a kangaroo.
He's a bear.
He's a bear?
He's got a white-
No, you're a kangaroo.
Kangaroos are. They're
No,
terrifying.
we're not asking you for opinion.
They're a good. That like don't.
No,
a bear-
Travis,
Okay.
what did you want to ask me?
Yes. To go back a little, because it was something you mentioned earlier, just about not letting our feelings control us. I guess what is the difference between properly feeling your emotions, but then recognizing when that just becomes like corrosive rumination in your own brain, and that's really what stagnates somebody. But like, I guess a good example. I know that there's a lot of halacha behind how you grieve with somebody passing away, but like, there's more types of grieving than just losing a person. Like people, I don't know how. Like, what would you say is like a good indicator for somebody whose body and mind are really in sync together? Like somebody who can really control their emotions on any given notice.
What? I feel like I'm in a girls' seminary all of a sudden. What? What are you asking me?
I'm asking.
If somebody controls their emotions, then what?
How do you control your emotions before letting your emotions control you? Because it's a
Listen,
lot.
the Ramchal, there's a book by the Ramchal. It's called Mesilat Yesharim. And in Mesilat Yesharim, he says that a person has to control 3 levels. What's the problem over there that you're trying to distract me?
Oh, we have a solution. It's called locking in.
Yeah.
I was telling Lenny to read Mesilas Yesharim, and I forgot who wrote it. So
A what?
I was telling Lenny to read Mesilas Yesharim.
I'm
Oh,
not
the Ramchal. Wait. So the Ramchal says that a person has to control their thoughts, their speech, and their actions. Actions are easier to control than the other two. Right? A policeman stops you. You know exactly to sit up straight, put your hands on the 10 and 2 o'clock, and you roll the window down. He says, "Good evening, officer. What can you tell me why you stopped me?" And he says, "Yes, you were going to see that stop sign." Right? You know how to be full control. Your speech is the next level. You can control it. You know what to say and what not to say. "Yes, officer. Of course, officer. No, I didn't mean to. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. Could you please give me a verbal warning?" You know how to be super polite. Thoughts are the hardest to control. I'm placing, for this purpose, emotions under thoughts. I have all sorts of feelings, but that doesn't mean I act upon them. Someone annoys me, angers me. I don't get up from the table at lunch and run away. No. I just went to get water, Lenny. You control it to the extent that you can. Some emotions, I wouldn't say some, but at some point you need to start evaluating, why am I feeling what I'm feeling? When anger comes, it comes from arrogance. That you believe that the world needs to be according to you. And when it isn't, your reaction is anger. But if you understand that the world, right, that you're not the master of the universe, nobody died and made you God, the road doesn't belong to your father, so he's allowed to drive in front of you and slow down. So you work on those emotions and you then realize that some of them are irrational and not beneficial at all. They're actually detrimental to your growth. Some emotions are good to have, such as embarrassment, because it keeps you in control, right? I mean, you're not going to walk around naked, right? But some people, don't understand about socks.
I just don't feel comfortable.
We don't feel, yes, but why is it about you?
Because it's my body.
But what if other people, you're making other people uncomfortable.
Oh, really?
I'm just saying, I'm giving an example.
Oh, okay.
Right? There was a guy who was running around flip-flopping naked, in the dorms. That's not...
naked. That's not.
What?
Was not naked.
Was not naked.
Had
Okay.
pants on.
What? I had pants on, I think. So there's some emotions that are good to have, and we should cultivate them. Feeling of mercy and rachmanas, ahava. But anger is wrong. Impatience, we need to work on that. So we look at the emotions and we try to say, okay, there are some emotions that we can understand why we feel that. So when somebody passes away, we were talking about grief. What are we sad about? Right? Mm-hmm. If you are sad for the right reason, then we would say that feeling is legitimate. Mm-hmm. And therefore go through the process of looking at it and evaluating it and grow with it and see what the plan was. Yeah. But if the feeling is anger, feeling is disappointment in a sense of, no. And grieving is in a sense of that you lost the opportunity to have, let's say in the case of the Rosh Yeshiva, to have him be your guide. You have somebody to talk to, somebody to give you a bracha. So it's a loss of what he stood for me. But it's not in the sense of how can God do this? Mm-hmm. That would be the wrong approach. I don't want to violate the principle of Dan. When he sets the time for the shiur to end, we must end it. So Be'ezrat Hashem will continue tomorrow. Email to Hashem.
Thank you, Rabbi.